Good to hear. Look, Minister, you're probably aware of this, but on Friday, this Friday, the 2nd, 3rd of March, the climate movement will be back on the streets for the first time in a long time. And I'm delighted to see Extinction Rebellion and Fridays for Future taking the climate crisis seriously and marching from Parnell Square at 12 o'clock to this House. But I want to ask you, please, to clarify for me and for them your government's plans to deal with the recent figures from the EPA that show Ireland has a huge increase in CO2 emissions and is the worst performer in the EU, according to Eurostat, in terms of emission reductions.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Deputy. I am also very happy to see climate protesters on the street. I think that young people often, their voices are lost, and what we hear instead are the reactionary forces against any climate actions that we try to bring in. So to see people cheering and actually going out and proving that they care is very motivating. Finalised emissions data for 2022 is not yet available, but recent reports have indicated that Ireland's greenhouse gas emissions increased in 2021 and may also have increased in 2022 as we emerge from COVID-19 restrictions. The EPA's models for projected emissions do not take into account all policies and measures which have been committed to in our climate action plans, and these reports suggest a concerning trend which underlines the urgency with which we must respond to the climate crisis. So to reverse the current trajectory of emissions and to meet our 2030 and 2050 targets, we have to accelerate the implementation of policies that will not only decarbonise our economy and improve our indigenous supply of sustainable and renewable energy, but we also have to support new ways of conducting business and encouraging innovation. The Climate Action and Low Carbon Development Act significantly strengthens climate governance in Ireland, and the sectoral emissions ceiling set out a clear pathway for meeting our carbon budgets and Ireland's commitment to a 51% reduction in emissions by 2030. These ceilings are reflected in the Climate Action Plan 2023, which was published on the 21st of December 2022. The 23 plan builds on the 2021 plan, and it sets out the policies, measures and actions needed to keep us within our carbon budgets and on the pathway to a climate-neutral economy no later than 2050. The establishment of climate delivery task forces to accelerate and drive delivery in a number of key areas regarding our climate action, including offshore renewable wind energy, heating and the built environment and sustainable transport. These will serve to support our focus on accelerating the implementation of meaningful and impactful climate action.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy Smith.
Well, Minister, far from being on target to cut our greenhouse gas emissions by 51% by 2030 or by 5% a year, we are, according to Antashka, which is littered with very eminent scientists on this issue, on track to exceed the combined 10-year carbon budget by between 23 and 36%. That's exceeding the budget, and we're on track to do that. I'd like to say, Minister, that I don't think the climate movement would be cheering the Green Party almost 3 years into your decision to prop up Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael in government. We're beginning to see clearly what a disaster that has been for the climate movement and for the climate crisis. Not only are emissions rising here, but the spin that your government is committed to will lock in and guarantee failures. And I just want to talk briefly about that in relation to electricity, which was spoken about earlier on. Our demand for electricity has risen by 9%, and uniquely in Europe, that is driven by the demand from data centres. We now have 16 more big data centres to come on stream to be hooked up to the national grid. So how can you say we're taking climate action seriously when we are in these energy-intensive areas and using up our best energy?
Thank you, Deputy. I really think it takes all parties to solve this problem. I don't think that this is a partisan issue. I don't think it's going to work if one party takes it one way. I don't think it works if parties condemn each other or denounce each other. I think it works if we can actually constructively work together. I'm not long in politics, but for me, you know this personally, that I am absolutely committed to climate action, and it's all I've thought about for most of the last 20 years. So it just bounces off me if I get accusations of you don't really care or you don't really want to do this. It's just not true, and I think everybody who knows me or has ever worked with me knows that it's not true. Our party and our government is absolutely committed to climate action. We know what the different areas are that we have to work on to get there. It's not easy. It can't be entirely done by government. It does require that the corporate sector does their part. We have to regulate and we have to tax them and we have to push them into it because they won't do it otherwise. They've no reason to. And also it also takes action from the public. It means that we have to change our entire culture so that we can carry out these things.
Thank you.
Minister, I don't want you to take my criticism personally, their political criticisms and their criticisms of your party propping up a neoliberal right-wing set of parties who are bound to fail on climate because they believe in the capitalist model of doing business, of doing economics, as apparently the Green Party do, because you voted against every measure that any progressive element of the opposition has tried to bring in, including the curbing of the proliferation of data centres, to mention but one. So it's not a personal criticism of you, it is of the politics that are driving the climate agenda in this country. And that's why I think the young people on the streets on Friday will be demanding system change, and that means changing our economic system and our economic priorities as well as our environmental priorities. Because if you don't change the economic priorities, then you are going to see global banks continuing to fund fossil fuel corporations to $3.8 trillion to explore and extract more fossil fuels. And the signs on the planet are very, very worrying. We're seeing natural systems in the process of falling apart, systems that held the planet together. You and I know this, we've been watching this, but you're in government, I'm not, so I have every right to criticise you for your failures.
Minister, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, Deputy, you've every right to criticise me and every right to ask questions, and that's part of our system. And to be honest, I welcome it, and I'm not being defensive. But I think that we do need to work constructively together to solve these problems. What are we doing? What are we doing for climate action? We have three major areas. We've got transport emissions. We have heating and building emissions, and our electricity emissions, and of course we've got our agriculture emissions as well. So you know that there are huge. We are trying to revolutionise our transport system. We are trying to move people towards public transport. We're cutting public transport fares. We're spending €2 on public transport investment for every €1 we spend on new roads. You know that we have massively increased our investment in retrofitting. You know that the majority of our retrofitting spend goes on free upgrades for people who can't afford it. You know that we are building more renewable energy, more solar and more wind than was ever put onto the grid, so that at some points we're generating 80–90% of our electricity from renewable sources. And these are huge and significant changes. People notice it when they find that their bus fare is half what it was before.
Thank you.